But this next speaker I get to introduce to you. You ever been down at the office and you're working on that listing, appointment, you're trying to value a property, or you're pulling properties out of the MLS for that buyer, that perfect couple, and you're searching there, and you're going over disclosures, and you're just going about your day, and all of a sudden the phone rings. It's only happened to me one time in my life. And little did I know that phone call would change my life and alter the course of my life and many of your lives. Because that phone call was from a friend of mine who heard me speak at a Haas Pratt seminar 2 years prior. She barely knew me. She says, I don't even know if you remember me. We met for 30 seconds in the lobby. So I'm taking a chance on calling you. But I want to ask you what you know about eXp Realty. You had to have heard about them. She was so excited. I'm like, no, not too much, really. And she said, I respect you so much. I was so impressed with what you had to say at Haas Pratt and you as a speaker. And pretty much whatever she's selling at that point, I'm going to purchase. And she goes, would you just give me your opinion on this new model for real estate, because I think it's going to revolutionize real estate. And at the time, there are like 1,200 people in the whole world, right? I didn't know that. But I remember thinking, sure, I'll give you my opinion. She didn't ask me to leave my brokerage. She didn't, just, hey, can I get your opinion? I respect you. Can I get your opinion? That's how you grow eXp right there. Super easy to do. Sincere compliment to anyone you respect. And next thing I know, I'm watching The Model Explained with Rob Flick and Sheila Fejeran. And you know what? I got done with that thing. I stood up. I got on that webinar knowing there's no way I'm going to be interested. I'm at the best company in the world. Nobody can touch Keller Williams with that 300-foot pole. They're in their own stratosphere. There's just nothing can even come. I felt sorry for everyone at every other brokerage if you're not plugged in. But what I didn't have after almost a decade was ownership. And what I didn't have was the revenue share piece. I didn't even know those things existed. It was like thinking the world was flat and finding out it's round. It's like discovering gravity. It's like a whole new concept for the caveman, Brent Gove. And so with that said, I leaned up from that webinar, leaned over my computer in my corner office of my large 500-agent office going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm going to say what I'm about to say. Because I made the Kool-Aid. I sold the dream. I believed in what I was doing at my prior brokerage. And they're an amazing brokerage, nothing but love and good thoughts there. But I said, I'm super interested. How do I find out more? And they're like, come see us next week at our annual event in San Antonio. I'm like, next week? And it was San Antonio. And I came with 5 days' notice. Like many of you, a week or two or three ago, a month ago, you were invited to be here. And you raised your hand and bought an airline ticket. You got a hotel or an Airbnb. You took a taxi, and you made it here. And I sat there in San Antonio as a guest, as an ex-Keller Williams team leader with my 18-agent team doing $120 million a year in sales, and I just watched. And I met 100 people. And you know what? I interrogated them. Did you really get the stock? No, did you really get revenue share? Did they bounce checks around this place? I literally asked people, have they ever bounced a revenue share payment or a check? I want to know. Did they slow pay you? And 100 people's like, it's incredible, it's amazing, it's incredible. And I brought 2 people with me, and I had them tear it apart. I said, we are going to rule out eXp. I'm excited. I don't need you too excited. We wouldn't go to San Antonio if I didn't see something. But I need you guys to find the fly in the ointment, see if this thing passes the mustard test. Sheila was all over it. She took care of us. We met Gene. We met Jason. We met Glenn. I met Pat Hayes. I met Scott Lewis, Tracy Lewis, Dave Gagnon. I met legendary, incredible people that have now become my friends. We travel the world, and it's amazing. But the one person that changed my kids' lives, and many of yours, who I'm forever indebted to, and I get emotional about thinking, is my sponsor. I love her. She's amazing. She's a godly, amazing woman with a heart of gold. Help me welcome to the stage, Sheila Fejeran, everybody. Woo!
Emotional, I don't know what will. So what does it take to build? You're here to build something, right? Some of you are here to build an organization. Some of you are here because you actually are just trying to build your team in your real estate business. Some of you are trying to build your life and just get things back on track. So when you think about building, you have to look at stats, right? So we're going to look at some stats. And this is July. So it's very encouraging when you look at the fact that over a fourth of the agents in EXP have attracted agents to the company. Isn't that amazing? Give yourselves a round of applause. That's incredible. And when you think about building, a lot of times you think about people like The Rock, right? Oh, great. But then the truth of the matter is a lot of us are more like this. We're like, close our eyes, say a prayer, and hope it works, right? So I think it's important to think about this and to think about what you want to build, because the reality is if you don't build your dream, somebody's going to hire you to build theirs. And I don't think anybody in this room wants to build someone else's dream, right? You want to build your own. So today I'm going to talk about When You Wish Upon a Star. And so there's a famous movie from when I was a little girl, many of you have heard of it, called Pinocchio. And there's a famous song called When You Wish Upon a Star, and it says, "It makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you." So what is your wish today? And again, it could be your wish to build an organization, build your team, build your sales volume, just to get into EXP finally, whatever it is your wish is. I want you to think about that. And we're going to do a little audience participation, and we're going to pretend a little bit here for a second. And I am going to be your genie in the bottle. So your wish is my command. And what I want you to think about is, what is your number one wish? Could be anything. And I want you to take a second and lean over to the person next to you, and I want you to share that wish with the person sitting next to you. Just take a quick second and share your wish with someone. So, as your genie, because I can grant your wish, I'm able to grant your wish because I'm going to share with you today what WISH stands for. W stands for work. Do the work. Sometimes you have to work hard. Sometimes you have to work smart. Sometimes you have to grind it out. But Gene Frederick, when he pulled that list out of his pocket, he had the plan first, right? He wrote down he was going to do so many open houses and how many FSBOs he was going to call. But guess what? It didn't just happen from a piece of paper. He did the work, right? So Mike Ferry says your income is a direct reflection of your effort. So I guess my question is to you guys, what is your effort? So I'm going to tell you a little story. It's a story about a composer. And he was in middle school asked to join the high school band and play piano. But he didn't know how to play piano. And they said, oh, the songs aren't hard. it's just a couple of notes and a couple of songs. Just practice the few little songs so that you can be in the band. So he watched YouTube videos, taught himself how to play the piano, got advice from lots of people about making sure he was playing the songs the right way, and it started growing on him. He actually started composing music while he was learning how to play piano. He wound up becoming so good, within 2 years, he became one of the top 3 piano players in all of Texas. Within a year of that, the high school actually, for the first time in history, played a composition from a high school student for the entire community. His composition was played. Since then, he's taught himself to play 7 instruments by watching YouTube videos. He's composed for a short film. He's composed for a video game. He's been asked to tour Europe with a record label. He's producing and releasing his 2nd album. So in 7 years, he accomplished all of this. And he's 20 years old. This is my son, Jordan. So how did he get to where he's at 20 years old in 7 years? I'm going to tell you the little secret. When he came to me and said, Mom, I've been asked to play in the high school band and I really, really want to do it, we had the talk. And I said, let me tell you something, son. If you want to do this, you have to make the commitment. And this is what I mean. It takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to become an expert. And I told him, if you weren't willing to put in the work and make the effort and do the practice to become an expert, then don't do it. Don't do it if you're going to do it half-hearted. Don't do it if you're going to quit. Unless you're completely committed to putting in the work and the effort, don't put your hands to the task. And he said, I'm willing. And now you see what he's accomplished. So for us in the room here, we're all in real estate. So how does that translate to you? 10,000 hours is basically 417 days. And for those of us who've been in the real estate business a while, we all have heard before, you're supposed to make 3 hours of calls a day, right? So if you were making 3 hours of calls, that would be basically over 3,000 days and 9 years to accomplish this. Which seems like a lot, doesn't it? Now remember Jordan's story. In 7 years, he had accomplished what we talked about. So I have a question for you. By a show of hands, who in here would love to have Brent Gove's check? And so what if I told you that you could have it if you spent 9 years for 3 hours a day doing the work to get it? Would you do the work? What if I told you you could do it in half the time? Would that make you happy? Because Brent hasn't even been here 5 years, you guys. It didn't even take him 9. And you can have that if you put in the work. So what does it take? Deliberate practice, not perfection, produces imperfect progress. And I'm saying that because there are some people in the room that don't start because they're not perfect. They don't try because they're afraid to fail. You have to be willing to see this from the perspective of, I'm never going to be perfect, but I will make progress if I just do the deliberate practice. And if you've ever watched someone learn how to play piano or learn how to swing the bat to learn how to be a good sportsman or a good team player on a sports team, you know they fail a lot, right? And so you've got to be willing to fail a lot and do that imperfect progress through deliberate practice to be successful. Are you guys willing to commit to do that? Yes? So the I stands for ignite the fire. Stephen Covey says motivation is a fire from within. I talk to a lot of agents, and I hear all the excuses. I hear all of the complaints. I hear all the reasons why. And I had a friend call me a couple weeks ago, and she's actually a very big influencer in EXP, and she's, from what everybody else would consider, very, very successful. And she was really, really struggling. She was talking about, crazy thoughts in her head and how she was afraid and she didn't think she could do it and all these things. And I listened and I listened and I listened. And when she was done, I said 3 words. I said, stop playing small. I said, stop shrinking back because of the size of the circumstances that you are facing. And why could I say that to her? Because I've been there. We get ourselves, what I call, all tied up in knots. I'm not a recruiter. I'm not successful. I'm not funny. I'm not big. I'm not like Brent. I mean, you talk about insecurities, guys, listen. My sponsors are Gene Frederick and Rob Flick. And I brought Brent Gove. I mean, hello? If there's anybody in the room that has a reason or an excuse to be insecure, it's me. I'm sandwiched between the 3 top recruiters in the world. Hello? And I was afraid. And it took me a couple years here until one day my coach confronted me. And he said, your organization is massive. You have got to stop running your team. You have got to do this full time. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your family. What are you doing? And I just told him the truth. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. And he said, you just got to do it. And when that day, I remember that day because I made a commitment to myself that I was going to ignite the fire inside me and I was going to do whatever it took to be successful. So what did I do? And this is what I would also encourage you to do. I watched Gene Frederick's napkin presentation, probably 20, 30 times. I actually wrote out every single word he said in the presentation as a script. I wrote down when he did jokes. I wrote down the tone of his voice. I wrote down every single thing I could get from his video in a script in front of me. And then I called Gene. And I said, I'm jumping off a cliff. I'm getting ready to become a full-time recruiter. And I'm scared to death. And I don't know what in the world I'm doing. And I need help. And I had Gene walk me through every single reason he said what he said in the presentation. And then I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced for 2 months straight. Every day, every kind of situation you could imagine, my team and I practiced and role played, and we gave each other every single objection we could give each other as hard as we could be on each other so that we would get over our fear of presenting and get comfortable with whatever was going to come at us. And I learned something from that. And I'm not naive because of where I've come from, that not everybody in this room feels secure with this. I get it. I get that not all of you in here feel comfortable doing the presentation or feel comfortable necessarily even feeling like you're worthy even to build. But if you really, really want it, if you really have the fire inside you that you want to do this and you're willing to do the deliberate practice to make it happen, You can be on stage next year. You can be the one up here talking about how you overcame and how you did what you did to get to where you are. And some of you may be facing fires that none of us know about. Some of you may be facing fires in your financial situations. Some of you may be facing fires in your marriages. Some of you may be facing fires from the perspective of, dang man, I'm more worried about getting burned by the fire than the fire inside me because of what I'm going through. We have a lot of people here, and I'm not naive to think that some of you may be in really tough situations. I was in a really tough situation. I was in a really bad situation. I've been through a lot. If you ever watch any of my past videos, you'll see my life was a mess. I had every reason not to succeed. But I can promise you something. Some people are going to be lost in their fires, and others are going to be forged by them. And today you get to decide which one you're going to be. So I'm going to ask you to make another commitment today to yourself. And I'm going to ask you to build a fire inside of you that they can't put out. And no one and nothing and no circumstance in no way is going to stop you from reaching your goal and building your dreams and accomplishing everything that you've ever desired. Are you guys willing to make that commitment to yourself? Number 3, S. Servant leadership. So what's the difference between a boss and a servant leader? One of the biggest lessons I've learned at EXP, I can tell you EXP has changed my life, not just financially, but as a person. And I have learned what it really means to be a true leader at EXP. And I can tell you I failed a lot, a lot. And I've made a lot of mistakes in how I've led people before in the past. And I've learned through the years that servant leadership is truly the way to go. And I got cold chills today as we were in the room earlier and Glenn was talking about, what made him create EXP, and the thing that prompted him was the Zig Ziglar quote, that if you help enough people get what they want, that you will get what you want. And it just reminded me about what EXP is all about. Because if you look at the model of servant leadership, this is what it looks like. What does that remind you of? EXP. Just like Glenn flipped the model upside down on brokerage services, servant leadership flips the model upside down on how you take care of people. And John Maxwell says that true leadership must be for the benefit of the followers. It's not about you as a leader. It's about your followers. It's about the people who commit to you. It's about the people who take the chance and join you here at this company. And servant leadership isn't seeking rank. They listen, they serve, they build up, they think of the needs of other people. And I truly believe that being servant leaders, if we all become servant leaders in this way, we are going to change this company and change this industry and change this world in a way that people cannot even imagine or fathom today. And when you are a servant leader, you realize it's all about team. And this is what really changed me. And for those of you who feel insecure about recruiting, I actually had somebody today talking to me about this before I came on stage. And they were talking about, I'm not a recruiter and I'm scared to do this and things like that. And it made me think about the fact that this is what changed my perspective on recruiting. is I looked at it from the perspective, not that I'm going to recruit people and get numbers, because honestly, that messes with my head. That's just me as a person. If the numbers help you, awesome. But for me, the numbers messed me up because the numbers messed with my heart. But what did resonate with me and what did change me was when I started thinking about being a servant leader and just really about how I can give to people and how I can help people. And somebody mentioned earlier about it being a gift. I think about when I talk to somebody that I'm offering them an opportunity of a lifetime. I'm offering them something that will change the course of history for their entire family for generations. So that's how I think about it when I'm talking to people about coming to EXP. So, last letter. This last letter changes you from the inside out. This last letter is the letter that I believe represents the greatest leader in all of history, Jesus. H stands for having a humble heart. C.S. Lewis says, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. I wrote a book a few years ago called The Pursuit of the Humility of Christ because I believe that he is the greatest leader. He is the perfect example of humility, and that's who I choose to imitate and follow and work to be like. And I want to share with you guys some concepts in the book. And it was really interesting when I started doing this research because you started seeing how big corporations and CEOs of companies started really focusing on humility. And Ken Blanchard actually runs something called Ego Anonymous because he says the ego is one of the biggest barriers to people working together effectively. And him and his brother created courses to help develop humility-based strategies to overcome ego-driven habits, which is pretty interesting if you think about it. And even the former Zappos CEO, Tony Hsieh, said it's the number one quality they look for in a person. So Zappos actually would interview every single person in the process when you went to go on an interview with them. Like they would interview the limo driver, they would interview whoever picked you up from the airport, they'd interview the assistants at the desk when you checked in. And if any person along the way said that you treated them badly and you weren't displaying humility, it didn't matter if you were the most qualified person for the job, they won't hire you. It's the number one characteristic that they look for in a hire is humility. And even Pat Williams wrote a book, the former Orlando Magic coach, and he says humble people are actually, you know you're going to be received. They listen to you, they accept you. They're not going to try to impress you or manipulate you or judge you or criticize you or put you in your place. He said humble people are safe to be around. You can relax and be yourself. And isn't that what we all want? We all want to be in relationships with people that we feel like we can be ourselves and we can relax and we can enjoy our relationships with them, right? So it's also no surprise that it's one of the top characteristics. If you go through servant leadership training, it's one of the top characteristics that they say determine a servant leader is humility. One of my favorite authors is Andrew Murray. He says, pride must die in you or nothing of heaven can live in you. That's pretty powerful words. And even if you do not believe in Jesus or if you don't follow Jesus, I truthfully believe you can learn from him. And my friend Jim, who is here in the audience, he jokes with me all the time that he's the biggest Jesus fan and he's an atheist. Because he quotes Jesus all the time. But humility doesn't come naturally for us, right? It's something you have to work at. So as a gift, if you would like, I'd like to offer you a free copy of my book. to help you on your journey. And I pray today, as you decide to build your organization and build your team, I pray that you will commit to deliberate practice and imperfect progress, and that you will ignite a fire inside you that can't be put out, and that you will become known as a servant leader with a humble heart. And if you do that, my friends, I can grant you your wish, and all of your dreams will come true. Thank you. God bless.